Food bloggers, hi, how are you today? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Eat Blog Talk podcast. This is the place for food bloggers to get information and inspiration to accelerate your blog's growth and ultimately help you to achieve your freedom, whether that's financial, personal, or professional. I'm Megan Porta. I have been a food blogger for 13 years, so I understand how isolating food blogging can be. I'm on a mission to motivate, inspire, and most importantly, let each and every food blogger, including you, know that you are heard and supported. As you may have noticed, there is a lot of noise going on in our space right now about how to best gain traction for our food blogs or just our food blogging businesses in general, which is why this conversation with Luai Ghaffari from Urban Farm and Kitchen is so refreshing. I love his approach to food blogging. It's a perspective that I don't hear a lot, and I think you are going to really benefit from hearing this conversation. Luai has grown his blog sessions pretty quickly just in the past 2.5 years or so, and he talks through all of the ways he's done this, including thoughts on SEO, how to leverage social media, focusing on EAT, and my favorite thing of all is just his overarching perspective on his business. Listen through to the end. You will not be disappointed. I hope you love this episode as much as I did. It is number 548, sponsored by RankIQ. Hello, food bloggers. Are you looking to spice up your social media account with unique and exciting content? If you want that secret edge that makes you stand out in your niche, I might have the answer for you. Katarina can help you streamline your podcasting and social media content with audio editing, video editing, or social media strategies. She specializes in working with food bloggers, tailoring her content creation packages to their needs. Whether you want to create something new, like a gripping podcast, or if you want to refresh your social media strategies by creating scroll-stopping video content for platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, she has got you covered. If this sounds intriguing, get in touch with Katarina. Go to eatblogtalk.com/resources to get more information about Katarina's services. Again, go to eatblogtalk.com/resources and click on her link. Now let's get back to the episode. Luai is a published author, social media content creator, blogger, photographer, and gardening educator. Like many other bloggers, he wears multiple hats. Luai is based in Toronto, Canada, and his gardening cookbook, Seed to Table, was released July 2023. He also teaches a Garden to Table masterclass. Hello, Luai. How are you today? So good to have you on the podcast.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Super excited to chat today about you growing your blog sessions really quickly and getting all the details on that. Do you have a fun fact to share about yourself first?
Fun fact. So, my blogging journey sort of started in a weird roundabout way. I started through my gardening passion. I love gardening. I love growing food. And my blogging journey kind of started or became an offshoot off of that. So I think, my foray into blogging and to sharing recipes started in an unusual way. I hope that's fun enough for your listeners.
I think it's really fun because, I don't know, I'm one of those people who always has this desire to have a garden, but I never actually pull it off. I never even try it. So I always look at people who have a passion for gardening and actually do it like, oh, I wish I could be more like you. So I think it's super interesting. And then did you have a gardening blog or just an interest in gardening?
So my blog right now, yes, it's sort of a food blog / gardening blog in a way. When it comes to sort of niching down, I don't pay too much attention to the advice around that. I really kind of write what I love and what my readers and what my audience loves to read about and to hear about. So I cover gardening topics. I cover how to grow certain crops and herbs, and I tie that into the recipes and into, the different category pages that I have on my blog. So I do have a gardening category page, and I break that down into growing herbs and growing vegetables and, other kind of tips and tricks for gardeners, but also for people that want to grow their own food and then, bring that into the house, into your kitchen and make something beautiful with it. So I'm really my goal is to really cover sort of a garden to table approach. And that's what my blog is sort of centered around: garden to table, seasonal eating, and some of my background as well.
That's a good niche. And so I don't know if you said this already, when did you start your blog?
So technically, if I, look at the day that I went onto the domain and bought my domain, it was about 5 years ago. But I really didn't do much with it for the first 3.5 years. I started very focused on social media. That's really where I would say I spent most of my effort creating content and connecting with people. It's always been on social media. And over the last sort of couple of years, things shifted for me, and I started learning about blogging and realizing that this is a business. Like, you could really do something out of this for yourself, be an independent person, work towards something that you love. So I started learning more about blogging over the last couple of years, and that's really where I started pouring a lot more of my effort into. So sharing some of the recipes, sharing garden content, and anything around that I felt was valuable to my readers and that I wanted to share. But it was sort of like I said, in terms of becoming a blogger or doing more blogging, it came about in a roundabout way, right? I started with gardening and social media, and then I started focusing on my website and growing that over the last about year and a half.
So do you do this full time?
I do not. I do have a full-time career right now. Who knows? I mean, I think the goal for a lot of us, right, is to do this full time. It does feel like I have 2 full-time jobs right now, but I love it so much that for me, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like, a passion project. And I just love connecting with people, whether that's, through social media or through my newsletter. That's really kind of the fun part for me. And really having people discover some of the recipes that I've been sharing. And I've gotten so many emails back from people saying that, that they really appreciate getting exposed to new things. So all of that really just reinforces the fact that I feel like I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
So I definitely, hopefully one day can make this a full-time thing. But for now, I'm juggling 2 full-time careers, like I'm sure many other bloggers who are listening right now are doing as well.
Yeah. It's a challenge, I'm sure, doing 2 things that are both very important, right?
Yeah.
So in the last 2-ish years, you've really focused in on growing your blog and your traffic and all of that. And it sounds like you've grown your blog sessions fairly quickly, correct?
Yeah, I was looking at my Google Analytics before our call here, and I just wanted to get some numbers, to kind of put something quantitative to the qualitative discussion. When I look at, let's say, 2 months ago, I could see a 61% growth in terms of number of sessions over the last 2 months and 292% growth over the last 6 months.
Ooh.
So it is significant, but I also realize that it's not sustainable, right? I think, you have to take that and say like, okay, well, how can we make this, something sustainable? So a lot of the growth in the recent months has been, a lot of content that I've been putting into the blog, sharing quite a few new recipes and new roundups and new posts around gardening as well. I think a lot of it is seasonality as well. I think that, historically my blog has really been centered around sort of the harvest months, so summer and fall. But last year I took more of a concerted effort to try to round things up a little bit, round things out, I should say, to have more content that is evergreen and covers the various seasons. So it's really hard. I mean, if we have this conversation again in a year's time, I think we'll have a better view of things. But the growth has been really great. And again, it has allowed me to connect with so many new people, which has been a wonderful sort of byproduct of this work.
And I will say from my perspective that it seems like your connection with your people, with your audience, maybe is also a reason that your blog is doing well.
I think so. I think that having focused my efforts on social media all those years ago, I built like a really solid foundation of loyal followers and readers who, I'm really thankful for. I think that foundational audience is what keeps coming back, right? They're always looking, they're always going on my website, looking for new recipes, looking for new content. And I think that's great. Building that relationship is key. But at the same time, you have to also find new people, right? You need to connect with new people. And these days, I feel like it's harder than ever on social media to connect with new people. A lot of people are struggling to grow their follower lists. A lot of people are struggling to, navigate the social media algorithm changes. and whatnot. So it's not as easy to make these connections in 2024 as it maybe was, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it is definitely a different situation these days. So talk about some of the things that you believe have really helped you to grow quickly.
I think I want to touch on SEO a little bit, and I think that SEO, can be viewed in two lenses, right? Like on one side, it could be writing for Google, trying to game the system, trying to find that top position by any means possible using AI, whatever. There's a lot of sites out there these days that are doing just that, and I think based on the recent Google updates, we've seen a lot of people being penalized for that, right? Because they're not necessarily writing for their audience, they're writing for Google and just trying to get to the top. I see SEO as a little bit different. I see it as writing with Google in mind rather than writing for Google, right? So yes, following their recommendations, but really focusing on my reader, my reader persona, my follower persona, and also focusing in on honing in on my expertise. So that's really how I view SEO, is so really thinking about Google, keeping it top of mind, but not writing for Google, right? Writing for the people that are going to be reading our blog should always be the top of mind. And I think that breaks down into different sort of categories. When I like to write my recipes, I really like to make sure that they're concise, they're to the point, they cover all the different questions that might come up. Of course, we won't be able to cover all the questions that come up, but being able to cover as many as we can, and really no fluff, no unnecessary photos, etc. I try to keep things really streamlined. I think internal linking is another area that has really helped me, especially linking to recipes that may not have been my greatest writing endeavors when I first started, right? Linking back to some of those in order to create some internal navigation for people, and really focusing on complementary recipes that can be made together or, in the same sort of category. That has really helped. And I could see that because people are spending more time on the website, and there's, more views, more page views per person as I look at the analytics. So that has really helped. I think another area is sort of around content clusters. I like to focus on a few clusters at a time and really pump out content around those. So if I'm right now, let's say, for example, the summer harvest season is coming up, in the next few months. I'm really focused on growing my fermentation and preservation content cluster. So really trying to work on creating as many recipes as I can that people will be searching for during that time. Same thing with content clusters around, let's say, the gardening space, right? So we're heading into the garden season for most people in the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm really focused on that right now in order to generate, content that people will be able to click from one article to the next. So I found that has really been helpful as well. One thing that has helped me personally try to streamline my work is following a prescriptive blog formula. It seems to work and resonate with my readers, but I'm not necessarily 100% stuck to that formula. Always want to make changes depending on the recipe and depending on the situation. Basically, if I'm reading this blog post myself, what would I find useful? Like I would, so there might be, for one recipe, you might want to include substitutions or a serve with. For another recipe, it might not make sense to do that. So I think, yes, having a prescriptive formula makes sense as you're trying to work and go through the process of writing recipes, but you should be flexible enough to make changes that are required, recipe by recipe.
Yeah, for some, it might be worthwhile to put like equipment, for example, and others maybe not. Yeah. So to have kind of a template, but to also be adaptable and go with the flow. I was going to ask you about content clusters. Do you recommend thinking seasonally with that? Or how do you recommend people start with thinking about what clusters to focus on?
Well, I think it depends on your niche and what you're writing around. For me personally, seasonality matters a lot because it is, part of what I do, and it kind of dictates the kind of content that I can create and share on social media. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. I guess it's, the social media aspect is another reason why I feel like my growth has been so positive. For me to be able to go into the garden and harvest some basil and make a recipe video out of that and share a blog post on it, I can't do that in December, right? I have to do that in the summer months. So for me, seasonality really matters. It might not necessarily matter for someone else who's writing, let's say, a baking blog, for example. But I think clusters help also give authority to a blogger in the sense that, if you only have one recipe on, a singular muffin recipe, for example, and someone is looking you up, falls onto that muffin recipe and they want to explore more muffin recipes and you have nothing else to offer them, I think that person might not necessarily equate you with an authority, quote unquote, on muffins, right? I think clusters help round out your categories, that they help provide readers with more content to look at. So I think it really depends on your niche and what you're writing on.
Yeah, that's such a great way to look at it. So not necessarily seasonally, but looking at it almost from the perspective of your user and how it could be more helpful for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then how do you feel about, I know you've put a focus on SEO. How do you feel about audits, paying for those services that some bloggers pay for?
Yeah. So, I think, and this might be different for different people, right? At the end of the day, are you looking at your blogging as a business, as a career, or are you looking at it as a hobby, right? And if you are looking at it as a business, I think it's important to recognize that successful businesses of all types invest in tools and services and expertise and research. So I am definitely a proponent of seeking out and paying for services and tools that can help you grow your business. I think that sometimes in order to make money, you have to spend money. You just have to be smart about where you spend it, right? So I do think that services like audits can help. Full disclosure, I did an audit, SEO audit, on my blog, and it was helpful, right? I think it's helpful in many ways. They can uncover issues, they can help you formulate a path forward. So I would definitely recommend it if it's within your budget to consider that. And there's a few services out there that offer audits, website audits, SEO audits, or whatever you want to call them. But definitely, you have to look at your blog as, is it a business or is it a hobby? And if it's a business, I think that answers itself.
Yeah.
Right.
And then keyword research for you. I know it seems like you focus on what your user really needs, which is great. But how do you do keyword research to kind of marry in with all of that?
Yeah, I do use keyword research because I think it's important to kind of understand what you're writing on. So I do use key search. I think a lot of bloggers use it because it's affordable, right? But I'll be quite honest, in the last few weeks, I've been questioning the data that's coming out of it. So I'm using it less and less for, to help with volume or to help with understanding whether a keyword is easy or medium difficulty. It just it's one of the many tools I use when I'm deciding on what to write. Because again, I'm not necessarily looking for that to be, one of the top 3 for search. Sometimes I'm writing content because I know it's going to do well with my social media audience, and I will get those page hits if I promote it on social media, right? So it really kind of depends. I'm trying to diversify as much as I can. And I think we all should be doing that, because if we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, right? We don't want to put all our eggs in the social basket or the Google search basket, right? Diversifying across the different platforms, whether that's Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, email lists, Google, I think is the best path forward for all of us during these rocky, uncertain times. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. I think diversify is one of the key words of the year. Hello there, food bloggers. Let's take a quick break from the episode to talk about my favorite keyword research tool, RankIQ. It's been my favorite tool for a couple of years now because it has increased my traffic year over year, and it continues to do so, even despite the changes going on in our industry. Without RankIQ, my blog traffic would be probably in trouble right now. I was doing some perusing through my analytics recently, and I noticed that a ton of my roundup posts are currently in the spotlight. Roundup posts are something I started focusing on when I began to use RankIQ a few years ago. At the time, I wasn't sure how they would perform long term. Today, I'm really glad that I pursued them and gave them a chance. They have produced a lot of blog traffic for my blog over the years. Go to rankiq.com and type "what to serve with" in the search section of the keyword library. Sort from lowest to highest competition and browse through the keywords that populate, pulling out the ones that align with your niche and content. Compile and write at least one roundup per month for the remainder of the year and watch these posts rise to the top of your analytics. Users are always searching for ideas about what to serve alongside certain dishes and certain foods. This will not go away. Head to rankiq.com to get started with your own powerful list of roundup posts today. Now back to the episode. Also, I think what you do really well, it sounds like, is just being able to take a step back and see the whole business, from like a broad perspective instead of like, I need to focus on SEO in the way that like I need to get top 3. You're not doing that. You're taking just this like overarching view of your business and seeing how everything plays together and how that's all going to serve your avatar.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I sometimes there'll be a keyword that I know I won't rank for. I won't even rank for in the top 20, but I might want to do it anyway because I want to round out a category and I want to round out, or create content around something that I know will resonate with folks on social media. So I don't necessarily look at that, like you said. I do take a step back and see how it can fit into the whole picture at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us into the whole social media discussion because I think that's sort of an area that a lot of bloggers that I know and I've spoken to have maybe ignored over the last few years because they were getting such amazing clicks from Google, right? And now everyone is like, wait a minute, we need to maybe go back and look at social a little bit more.
Yeah. So how do you handle social media? Tell us if you have a strategy or something there that works.
So, I'll take a step back. Like I told you, I initially started really focusing on creating content for social media because I loved the connection that social media gives you with people who are interested in the same things that you're interested in. So I've been very lucky. I amassed a lot of followers, over the years. I think Instagram is probably my primary platform. I'm growing on TikTok as well, but really Instagram is where I have quite a bit of followers. I have 330,000 followers right now.
Oh, nice.
Over the years, because I was focused on social media, I had opportunities that I would not have otherwise been able to get. For example, I was able to get a book deal because of my social media presence and expertise. I published a book last year, a garden to table book. In fact, it's sort of like a hybrid.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a hybrid gardening recipe book. So there's about 50 or so recipes. And, I cover things like how to preserve the harvest when you're gardening and you're harvesting, tons of basil. What do you do with it, right? What do you do with all these tomatoes? What do you do with all these eggplants? So really focused sort of on a garden to table book. But it was really that discussion and that work around that book that really triggered me to say, hey, you know what? It's great that I'm doing this for the book, but I want to grow my blog now. I want to be able to create more recipes and share more content. Social media was able to really give me those opportunities. It just resonates. The content resonates with my followers and it's growing. So I'm very happy about that. I think what's been key for me lately is sort of zeroing in on shareable and savable content. So content that people will just want to share to their story or share with their friends and family, or content that they're going to save. And that just tells the algorithm that, hey, this is valuable content. And it's just sort of like this domino effect. Once the algorithm thinks that your content is valuable, it gets shown to more people. And, it's hard to know what happens under the hood of, the Instagram algorithm. But I feel like if you're true to yourself and you're true to your audience and you're sharing content that, is valuable to you, it'll be valuable to them. And if it's shareable and savable, that's even better, right? So
what makes a social media post shareable, would you say?
I think there's probably 2 ways to look at it. It has to be super controversial. Like it has to be a hot take. Like and hot takes are, they can be anything. It can be a political post. It can be something that goes against the grain, right? But the other thing that could make it shareable or savable, if it's something that people have never really seen before, right? A brand new recipe or a technique that people haven't seen, or something that is really kind of mind-boggling. It's very hard to find that kind of content, right? Because otherwise, you can't be reinventing the wheel every time. But if you're able to share content that piques people's interest, you don't have to do that every time you post. You do that as much as you can, but because people are interested in what you have to say, when you do go and share a recipe that maybe is, a special grandma's recipe, people will still look at it, and because they recognize that you have valuable content to share.
And you can do a similar recipe as other people, but still have your take on it and have it be novel, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be like the recipe that nobody's ever made. It's like this brand new thing. It can be just the same as other people's content, but your cheese pull is way cooler than other people's.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you have to just accept the fact that with social media, it's like gambling. You don't know if you're going to get rewarded, and you don't know if you're not, right? Like the social media algorithm does what it wants to do. But I found, for me personally, as long as I think about what my followers are interested in, and I always keep that in mind, then it tends to do well for me. And another thing that's really been doing well for me on social media is using redirect tools. So tools like ManyChat, for example, that, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, where a blogger or a content creator will say, comment guide, and I'll send you my guide on so-and-so, or comment recipe, and I'll send you my recipe. I've been using this tool for a couple of months now, and it has really been a game changer for me, because it has allowed me to show my blog content to my social media followers, right? And for social media followers, they don't like to leave the platform. They just want to scroll, right? So by using tools like ManyChat, it has enabled me to kind of show some of these followers that, hey, I've got presence outside this platform too. I've got this great blog that you can come and take a look at and get recipes. And it has helped me get a significant amount of new email subscribers as well. Yeah, so these tools are free to start. Obviously you got to pay to play at some point, but they are free to start. Definitely something worth experimenting with.
Can you tell us a little bit about ManyChat, just how it works for people who don't know?
So it's essentially like a bot automation tool that allows you to create workflows. And these workflows can be triggered either from an Instagram story or an Instagram reel, or even Facebook. I haven't yet experimented with the Facebook side of the tool. But what I essentially do is, let's say I'll share a recipe as a reel, and then I'll have a call to action to comment recipe, or comment flatbread, or comment, whatever the recipe may be, to trigger people to make that comment. And once they make that comment, it triggers the automation. And the automation can then be, many different things. But the most basic automation is someone, that bot or that tool will send them a link to the recipe directly in their DMs. So then all they have to do is go into their DMs and click the link, and it just brings up your recipe post on your blog. So that is essentially, there you go. You've got a website visit that's come through from social. And, you're not going to go viral on everyone, but if you do have reels that go viral, it can really be just drive a lot of traffic. I had one reel that went so viral, I think I got 10,000 website clicks.
That's amazing.
From it. Yeah, and the goal there is to keep the automation in place if you leave it on, someone who sees that reel, 6 months down the road and clicks recipe, they're going to get the recipe, right? So it's like sort of you're priming yourself for the future, and having all that content out there that can be automated. It has been really a game changer for me personally from the social media side of things.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I've heard people talk about ManyChat, and that saves us so many steps, because I used to do that where it was like DM or leave a comment with this word, and then I would have to monitor it. Mm-hmm. And it was like all consuming. It was hours of my day, and it was like, this is ridiculous. So that just takes all of that out of the equation.
I will warn folks, though, I've been put in Instagram jail twice for using it, and on 2 viral reels. And the issue there is that the Instagram spam filters start, getting triggered when they see multiple replies from you as the content creator on each comment. And especially if the comments are the same, like sent you the recipe, sent you the recipe, sent you the recipe, that it triggers their spam sort of filtering. So that's something to keep in mind. You can turn off the auto reply to the comments. You could put a delay in so that things get delayed and it feels like it's more natural rather than instantaneous. But there's ways around it. But yeah, Instagram jail is no fun. Even as a verified account, I was still put into jail. But it doesn't last very long, and all it does is it prevents you from making comments on your own posts and other posts. So it's well worth the 10,000 website clicks. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of clicks. Holy cow. Is there anything else you would talk about relating to social media and just how that has played into your growth?
In terms of my growth as a business, it has been great because it has been able to help me diversify my income and not necessarily rely on, website ad income alone. So I think focusing on social media helps, again, with that diversification that we talked about. It just helps, I think, also provide Google with a little bit more eat authority on you as a content creator. I think it's one of those things that can't be discounted. So, there was a while when you would Google my name, you would get sort of a notification, like I guess a featured snippet or whatever about me, and it would say, internet personality. And see, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I'm going to assume that if Google recognizes that it should help boost my blog, right? And boost the eat that we all talk about, right? So I think focusing on social media these days is going to be key for other reasons too. We're in the age of AI and people can create content and videos, with a prompt. So what makes you unique compared to the hundreds and thousands of other bloggers and content creators out there? It's you. It's your personality. It's your face. It's what you have to offer to the world. And I think that in the age of AI and in the age of, scraping sites and all this other stuff that we have to deal with, the only thing we truly own is ourselves. It's our face. It's our personality. It's our persona. It's the expertise that we have to share. So I think for a lot of bloggers, now's the time to start thinking seriously about your presence on social media and what you want to get out of it. I think it's important to share your personality and try to build a rapport with people on social media, not just on your blog through your email list and whatnot.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. I love your perspective on that. And again, it's just that broader view of your business. It's not just one piece. You have to look at all of it. And you mentioned EEAT. Have you focused on that outside of what you talked about?
Yeah, I think I had a pretty sad looking about page on my blog for many years. And it was through one of those audits that we talked about earlier that was recommended that I really beef it up, right? And I did, and really honed in on talking about my expertise and talking about the areas that, I'm focusing on. Also included links in my about page to where I've been quoted or where I've been featured. So I think it's important for people who are looking at who you are, want to know a little bit more about you, to see, where you've been picked up in terms of other media presence, whether it's, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a huge exhaustive list of that, just a few things. If you've been featured on Yahoo, put that on. Why not? Like let people know that you've been quoted somewhere or that someone has shared your recipe on a big recognizable blog or big recognizable website, right? I was recently featured by Martha Stewart.
Ooh.
The second that I saw the notification in Ahrefs, I went and I updated my logo banner for my website to include marthastewart.com. Like that was the first thing I did, right? And I took a screenshot of the article, made sure that I have that on file in case, I need to create an online portfolio at some point of where I've been quoted or where I've been, featured. I think it's important. Again, that kind of goes back to the business aspect of things. I think this helps you as a business as you position yourself, let's say, to brands. If you want to do brand deals, if you want to do sponsored content on social media, they want to know where you've been featured. So all of that is important to keep track of and to share. And I don't consider it gloating or showing off. I consider it, it's like your resume. It's like your CV. Just put it out there. Let people know where you've been featured.
Absolutely. I think a lot of bloggers are so hesitant to round out their about page for that reason. They don't want to be seen as like a gloater. I don't want to brag about myself, but listen, like that is your place to shine and tell people and to tell Google what you're all about, all of your credentials. I always say like boast away on that because there's no other place you're probably going to do that. And it's really so important. It's one of those underrated things, right? That like it's so easy to update your about page, but people resist it. They don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I resisted it for a long time because I said to myself, like, why? It's not important. No one's looking at it. Like, that's what I used to convince myself. But the truth is people do look at it, especially if you are positioning yourself to diversify your income and you want to do brand deals, you want to work with brands, they're going to look at your about page. They're going to see, where you've been featured, who you've worked with. I even have a call out to get, request media kit that is in my footer that's there for anyone that's looking and that wants to get that information, whether it's, a media partner or a brand or an agency. I think we have to be able to put ourselves out there, put our faces out there on social media, show our perspectives, show our points of view, and not be afraid to, brag about it a little bit when something good happens. I shared my Martha Stewart feature on social media. I put it as a story.
As you should.
And I think more of us need to be doing that because, one thing that struck me when I first started getting involved in blogging seriously, and I joined the Facebook groups and whatnot, is that there's this resistance among some bloggers to consider this a business or to consider this something that, we should be proud of. I think we should be proud of what we do. I think we should be very proud of the work we put out there. We should be very proud of ourselves, and we shouldn't be afraid to tell people that we are proud of ourselves for doing the work that we do. Because we're going to be competing against robots soon. So put yourself out there and make sure that people know who you are and what your point of view is.
So many great messages you brought to the table, Luai. I love all of this. Just taking a broader perspective of your business, putting yourself out there, leveraging social media. A lot of people resist that as well. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to discuss before we say goodbye?
I think we've touched on everything. We've given people a lot to think about.
For sure. Yes, this is a lot. And I'm so happy for you that you've grown so quickly. And I just, again, thoroughly appreciate your refreshing perspective. Yeah, it's just nice in this time when it's really tumultuous out there. Things are all over the place. And you just seem like this steady, just keeping an eye from 30,000 feet, doing well.
Yeah, and you're right. It is unsteady right now. There's a lot of concern and there's a lot of, worry, I think, within the community. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay. I think if you don't have that worry piece of the equation, you won't be able to find the solution that suits you, right? I think like any other business, you can't just coast. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to pivot. You have to diversify and look at it as a business. Look at it as your baby, right? Like this is your baby, right? You want it to thrive. You want it to survive and treat it as such.
Love that. Thank you so much. This was so great. What an awesome conversation. We appreciate you and your value today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Do you have either a favorite quote or words of inspiration to leave us with?
So I think we probably covered this, but maybe as a summary, I think whenever you're thinking about sharing a piece of content, this is what I ask myself every time I want to share a piece of content, whether that's on social, whether that's on the blog, or if it's an email that I want to send out. How does this piece of content serve my audience? How does it serve my business? And would I buy or read or consume it myself, right? And I think if you can answer these three questions, you're on the right track.
So great to end on that. We'll put together a show notes page for you, Luai. If you go to eblogtalk.com/Urban Farm and Kitchen. You can check those out. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at Urban Farm and Kitchen on all the platforms. That's in Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and my blog is urbanfarmandkitchen.com.
Awesome. Everyone go check it out. And thank you again so much for being here. And thank you for listening, food bloggers. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat Blog Talk. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you posted it to your social media feed and stories. I will see you next time.